We've already seen a lot of controversy happen, a wall being built, huge tariffs on Mexico might escalate even geopolitical concerns. Who could be the winners of this changing policies? There will be heightened volatility in the market. Donald Trump is coming back to the White House on January 20th. And this week, across political, economic, and market circles, people are going to talk about nothing else but what will Donald Trump do once he comes back. Donald Trump is expected to make some sweeping changes in the policies, in the trade framework, immigration, and so many things. So in this video, what we will do is we'll try to speculate what could Donald Trump do. So Donald Trump is also very unpredictable, right? We don't know what he does day to day. So obviously there will be a lot of volatility and uncertainty that could come into the market. So we can only just speculate what Donald Trump could do based on his recent statements. In this video, we'll cover certain broad topics on what could those policies be and see how that would impact different sectors and stocks in India. So the first thing that people are worried about is the economic impact of trade wars and tariffs. Donald Trump has already made some big statements or tweets saying that he will put huge tariffs on Mexico, or he would make Canada the 51st state. He's also said that he would acquire Greenland. He has spoken very vocally against the BRICS nations who are trying to make their own currency. And he said that he will take 100% reciprocal tariff against the BRICS nations if that happens. So that could be a huge impact on India and the emerging market if Donald Trump takes any such decisions. Obviously, India is just one part of the puzzle. There are other countries that might be at stake as well. So we've heard of Mexico and Canada being in Donald Trump's view. There's also China. We expect Donald Trump to wage a trade war against China, increase tariffs because his stance has always been against China. Now that could play out in different ways. That definitely puts a pressure on China and puts the pressure on their economy, might escalate even geopolitical concerns. But on the other hand, Indian companies or Indian exporters who can replace China, who are part of China plus one policies, could gain because of these changes. So in terms of the market, we would expect volatility in the trade dependent segments. Donald Trump policies in the initial bit could disrupt the global supply chain, and companies that depend on the global supply chain could face some volatility. Secondly, emerging markets in countries like India, which depend a lot on US trade, could also see fluctuations in the currency as well as the markets. In India, the key sectors that could face some pressure would be one, pharmaceutical. So companies like Sun Pharma and Cipla could face higher tariffs coming from the US and could see some pressure if policies change. Similarly, automobile companies which export to the US like Mahindra and Tata Motors could face pressure if some policies are put against them. Finally, IT companies like Infosys, Tech Mahindra could face pressure because a lot of their business comes from the US. In the US, you could see industrial manufacturers, for example, Caterpillar or 3M, actually do better because Donald Trump will be America first. On the other hand, FMCG companies in India, because of the higher tariffs, higher raw material cost, higher imports, could face some pressure. The second change we expect is on the immigration and the border policies. We've already seen a lot of controversy happen around the H-1B visa, where Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy of the Department of Government Efficiency have spoken against bringing in only skilled labor instead of anybody getting the H-1B visa. And India will face pressure because H-1B visa has 70% Indians in that. So tightening immigration, maybe mass deportation, border controls are things that we are hearing about. And even if you remember last time when Donald Trump was there, the immigration policies became stricter. They were more in the limelight. There was a wall being built. There was, mass deportation that actually happened. So those things could escalate and will have impact on the broader market as well. There will be implications on the market. So companies that depend on labor, for example, agriculture, construction, and even hospitality, which depend a lot on immigrant workers, could face pressure because of labor shortages. That would have some broader implications in the US. Tech companies, especially the outsourcing companies like the companies in India, which send a lot of foreign workers to the US for the H-1B visa, could face pressure as they put restriction on immigration or if they deport few of the employees sitting out in the US. So in terms of companies that could be affected in India, you would see these large tech giants like Infosys, TCS, Tech Mahindra face pressure. On the other hand, in the US, you would see companies in the agriculture agriculture and construction segment face pressure. For example, Tyson Foods out there could face some pressure because of that. Similarly, companies in the hospitality segment, for example, Marriott and Hilton, could face pressure because of shortage of immigrant workers. The third thing where Donald Trump will come and make some changes is on the foreign policy. So global relations will be hit because of Donald Trump's America First policies. We've already talked about his stance against de-dollarization. Right now in the world, most of the global trade runs on the US dollar, which gives the US economy excessive power over the world. So many countries like the BRICS countries have been trying to let go of the dollar standard and come up with their own currency and trade system. Donald Trump is really against that, and he will take strict actions against de-dollarization, and this could have direct implications on India. So in terms of sectors and companies that could be affected, we would see defense manufacturing like Bharat Dynamics, Hindustan Aeronautics, and all these companies benefit if there is a greater collaboration on the defense side. Similarly, you could see IT companies flourish if there's a better relationship, or pharma companies, these large companies like Lupin and Dr. Reddy's actually gain if there is a better relationships. But if the relationship turns sour, if there is a trade tariff, then the same companies could be under pressure. In the US, we could see companies like Lockheed Martin gain more defense contracts, and we could see companies like ExxonMobil in the oil and gas segment actually do better due to the changes in the geopolitical shift. Let's talk about one big thing that everybody expects Donald Trump to do, which is escalate the market volatility. Due to the unpredictable nature of Donald Trump policies, there will be heightened volatility in the market. So who could be the winners of this changing policies? You would see energy companies, especially the old energy, not the new energy. So oil and gas segment could actually gain because Donald Trump wants to go back to the fossil fuel instead of the sustainable fuel. So you could see companies like ExxonMobil in the US or Reliance Industries in India actually gain because of shift in focus towards fossil fuel. Similarly, defense companies could gain as Donald Trump would have a higher focus there. So defense companies in the US like Lockheed Martin or companies in India like Bharat Dynamic and HAL could benefit because of the greater defense collaboration and greater focus on the defense segment. Finally, there's a big thing which is about cryptocurrencies. Donald Trump has a very positive stance towards cryptocurrencies. He might remove all sorts of tariffs and all sorts of regulations that are put against cryptocurrency in the US, and that could lead to growth in Bitcoin, that could lead to growth in different cryptocurrency ecosystem across the board. And I think there's already been a big reaction towards the Donald Trump victory among the cryptocurrency ecosystem, and we are seeing certain people like David Sacks sitting on Donald Trump's government board who will sort of look at the cryptocurrency system. So we are going to see many shifts and maybe positive development in that segment. In terms of who will be the losers of this volatility, I think the number one loser would be companies in the sustainable energy or the green energy segment. Donald Trump, unlike Joe Biden, does not love green energy. So Joe Biden had a very big focus on the green energy segment. He wanted to focus on the sustainable means of energy. Companies like Suzlon in India, companies like Tesla in the US gained a lot with that focus. Now if the focus shifts back to fossil fuel, we could see a shift happen in India as well as globally. Second set of losers in this whole volatile space would be trade dependent segments. Wherever you are dependent on global trade, those segments could take a hit. So even FMCG companies who are dependent on raw materials coming globally could see some pressure as raw material prices fluctuate due to these trade policies. Another big impact would be on emerging markets and currency dynamics. We are already seeing Indian rupee depreciate to the lowest levels ever. Indian rupee has touched more than 86 against the dollar, and people expect it to go to 90, 95 if you look at many narratives. So we do expect fluctuations there. People are, selling across the board and rushing towards the US dollar right now, and that is putting pressure on many emerging market currencies like the Indian rupee. In terms of investment sentiment also, these America First policies will shift focus more towards American companies. On the other hand, they could put a sentimental hit towards emerging markets in a sense if these trade wars and escalations continue. Let's talk about the energy and technology segment as well. So in the energy space, he's going to have a negative impact on the green energy segment, and a higher focus on the fossil fuel. So you could see a focus shift from the green energy space to companies like Reliance and companies that are there in the fossil fuel space. Similarly, in the technology front, you could see a bigger focus on the cryptocurrency space, bigger focus on the US tech. As you know, we can see many of the large US tech billionaires now have representation in the US government. From Elon Musk to Jeff Bezos to Mark Zuckerberg, everybody has now spoken positively and sort of tried to go and collaborate with the US government. They could see more focus coming from the government, and obviously the tax cuts are going to benefit these tech billionaires. We also expect many social and educational policies to shift under Donald Trump. For example, the health minister that he might appoint could be against vaccines. Similarly, he could ban critical race theory in schools, and that could lead to social upheaval in the US as well. So obviously companies linked to education could see shifts in demand. Companies which are socially cautious could face pressure. Your vaccine companies could face lesser demand because the health minister would not believe in vaccines. On the other hand, educational companies in India which collaborate with the US could also face some pressure because of the shifting policies. So let's try to sum up what are the big implications that we see happening in India. There are a number of positives and negatives that people are looking at, but an emerging market like India is facing pressure, and you are seeing that happen very loudly in terms of the market reaction. You can see market touch their lowest levels in more than a year, and heightened volatility across the board. Small caps are being sold and FIIs have been dumping Indian stock for a while. But once these policies stabilize, once there is greater clarity and India sees some positive notes as well, for example, a rate cut in India or policies announced in the Indian budget could actually revive the Indian economy. But due to Donald Trump policies, we would expect export-oriented segments see volatility for sure. Companies that depend on the global supply chain would see a lot of fluctuations. Companies that could gain from China plus one policies will definitely gain. So you could have a look out at the chemical segment or some pharmaceutical plays or even electronic manufacturing. IT companies could stand to gain with a stronger global economy, but they could face pressure due to immigration policies and trade wars. Similarly, pharmaceutical companies would have pluses and minuses as well. We expect greater collaboration in the manufacturing space, especially in the defense segment, and that could be one thing that we could see. Renewable energy companies in India could follow the trend that could happen in the US, where the focus is shifting from renewables to non-renewables. We could see that trend shift. Even agriculture companies or OMCs, which depend a lot on commodities, could face some fluctuations in India. In the US also, we would see similar trends happen for the renewable companies and the fossil fuel companies there as well. So in conclusion, there are huge expectations of ups and downs from the sweeping changes that Donald Trump could make. In such a situation, what makes sense is for us to be very, very diversified in our allocation, maybe deploy a few hedges in expectation of what Donald Trump could do, and have an active approach to our allocations in this volatile time. Right now might actually be the right time to accumulate stocks that are at a bottom, because the revival would maybe come in the next quarter or so. So that was a quick overview of Donald Trump policies. If you like this video, please do hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Share it across to your friends who you think could gain from this information, and also write down in the comments what you think could be some of the changes that Donald Trump could make which could have a long-term impact on India and the world. We'll see you next time. Until then, happy investing.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.